Student Info System is a system to facilitate the sourcing of students. We developed this system for the convenience of the student to know their grade with two important data, which is coursework marks and final exam marks. To develop this system, we use Java GUI programming to create a simple interface for the user. To achieve all the result and data information, we use a few selection control structure like switch structure, if else loop, try catch loop, and repetition structure such as for loop.
So this is our coding for the main menu. In our main menu, we have the coding for the image to display the UEM logo. And after that, we have the exit coding for the exit and the add student. In the add student, we show the coding. If we click the add student, the form of the main menu will not display and go to the another form which is the student information system.
Okay, now we will talk about add student button. First, the user need to enter the student's name, metric number, program, total coursework marks, and also final exam mark. After the data has been filled, the user need to add the add button. Here is all the data will be stored. After this button has been clicked, all the data will be stored in the array that we already created. So now let's move on to the source code and how this button works. Okay, here's the source code for the add student button. Okay, we use try and catch structure, which inside the trial will be everything that's inside the trial will be executed, and the catch will handle the error that appears while this inside the trial being executed. Okay, inside the try we have this. First, we do the passing parameter for all of the data that has been entered by the user. For string, we didn't do any passing parameters because we don't need to do any calculation for the name. And for metric number, we have to do the passing parameter because we want to search the metric number later on for other button function. But we also need to do the passing parameter for the final exam for coursework marks and also the total. We change the data type into a double data type so that we can do the calculation later on. Okay, we move on to the if and else structure. Inside if we set a condition where the coursework and the final exam cannot below 0 and cannot more than 100. So if the user enter the wrong marks, a message box will appear and it will say the coursework mark and final exam marks must be between 0 to 100. Okay, if the user entered the marks correctly, a message button will appear and say that the data has been added successfully, and all of the text area will be clear, and all of the data will be stored inside this array that we created. And every time that the user enter new information for the student, it will be incremented. Okay, next we go to the catch. Let's say the user that does not enter all of the data that needed. For let's say the user forgot to enter the metric number, and then the error will show, and then the catch will handle the error, and it will display a message error message box which says please enter a valid information for name, metric number, program, coursework, and final exam marks. Okay, now let's move on to the display button. After the user enter all the data and click the add student button, the user need to click the display button so that all of the student information will be appear in this text area. Now I will show you the source code for the display button. Okay, before I go to the display button source code, I wanted to share this class object that we created in here. So to display the total, we do this calculation in here, which is total equals to coursework times 0.6 plus final exam times 0.4. Okay, after we get the total, we based on the total we can identify the scores for each student. So in this we use the if else structure. So for example, for grade A plus, if the total is more or equal to 90 and the total is less or equal to 100, the grade will be A plus. Same goes to other. And if let's say the user entered the total coursework and the final exam marks incorrectly, let's say they entered below than 0 or more than 100, the error will appear. So because the marks only between 0 to 100, so if the user enter more than that or less than that, the grade will be error, and then it will return error. So okay, let's move on to the display button. Okay, we use for loop so that the program will display all of the students information. Okay, we use the append method. First, okay, for example, we want to display the name. We use this array name, and then for the get name, we retrieve from this class, which is this one. It will return you want to display the name of the student that has been stored in the array. Same goes to the other for metric number, program, coursework, total marks, final exam total marks, total, and the grades. Okay, okay, then we close the for loop. Next we go to the if. Okay, if count equals to 0, a message box will display. It will say no student added in the system yet. Because every time the user enter a student's information and then they click add button, the count will be incremented. So if the count equals to 0, that means that the user haven't add any student data yet. So it will appear an error message box. Okay. I forgot to mention the condition for the for loop. We initialization I equal to 0, and then the condition for I is I must less than count, and then the updation is I will be incremented. Okay, now let's move on to the search button. After the user added all of the students' information, let's say the user wanted to search this particular student information. The user can use the search button, and a message box will appear, and the user need to enter the user will enter the metric number that they want to search, and then all of this if the student has been found, all of the information will be displayed in this text area. Now I will show you the source code for this search button. Okay, here's the search button source code. So I use in this code for this button to function, we use if else. Okay, inside the if, the condition is if count equals to 0, and a message box will appear and says no student added in the system yet. Remember the count that I said in the previous button? The count will be incremented if the students if the data has been added to the array. So let's say the user does not add any data information for the student yet, so it will equals to 0 and the message box will appear. Okay, if the account has been incremented, we'll move on to the else. Inside the else, we use try and catch structure. Inside the try, we ask this a message box will appear and for to ask the user to enter a metric number to do the pattern matching, and then we do the parsing parameter to convert the string into integer type, and then we declare boolean found equals to false. Now we move on to the for loop. Inside the for, the condition we initialize I equals to 0, and the condition is I must be less than count, and the updating the I will be incremented. Inside the for loop, we have if. The condition is if the metric number is equal to the array to the data that we have stored, which is the get number matrix, a message box will display and say student found, and it will display all of the information in the text area that I just showed to you, and the found will be equal to true because it's the pattern matching has been matched. Okay, and then we close the if loop and the for loop, and now we do let's say the user entered a wrong metric number, or the metric number is not existed yet. We will use this if structure. If the found is not found, and then a message box will appear and says no student found, and the text area will be clear. Okay, and next for the catch, let's say that the user does not enter anything in the text area when the program asks the user to enter a metric number, and they didn't enter any. A message box will appear and says please enter a valid metric number. And that's all for search button.
We use this because we want to call all the data from the array into the coding in the student info system. Okay, now for the clear button, if in the clear button we use the name. For the clear button, we put and we do not put anything in this bracket because we want, if the user click in the variable name gf, we don't have any input, so it is coding for the exit.
So this is our main menu for student info system. So here we have two buttons, which is add student button and exit button. When you click the exit button, it will end you from this system. When you click the add student button, it will bring you to the next page, which is you can add and search the data. So now I will click the add student button. So this is the next page where user can add the data. If you can see here, it has a main menu button. When you click this button, it will bring you back to the main menu like this. Okay, so there is some information that user need to add, such as name, metric number, program, total coursework mark, and final exam mark. So now I will put the student name as Aisha, metric number 272234. I choose the multimedia, and I will put as 85 and final exam as 90. Okay, I will click the add student button, and then this message will appear that say data has been added successfully. So that means your data has been added. So click OK. Okay, to display the data that you add just now, you just click the display button. So the data that you add will display here. There is 3 students here. It also will appear the total of the mark and the grade. Okay. So if you want to clear this data, you may click the clear data button here. Okay. So yeah. Okay. If you want to know the grade distribution of the student that you add just now, you can click the check button here. Okay. So here the message box will appear that say, if you can see, there is a number of students got A is 3 students. That means there is 3 students that you already add just now. Okay, so click OK. So then if you want to find the data of the student, you can click the search button here. So you just need to add the metric number of the student. So I put as 272246. So I click OK. The message student found will pop up. So that means the system have the data of this student. Okay, I will click OK. So here, if you can see, the data of the student will display. Okay. So now I will try to search the next student. So I will put as 273356. So okay. So the message no student found will pop up. That means the system does not have the data of the metric number you put just now. That means no student in this system. Okay. Then if you already done to add the data of the student and search the student, you may click the exit here. So it will end you from this system. Okay.